Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into a topic that's becoming more important as people live longer lives. Memory, thinking, and the ability to stay connected to the world around us are things we often take for granted until they start to slip away. Many families have faced the difficult reality of watching a loved one change in ways they can't control. Understanding why this happens is one of the first steps toward protecting our minds and supporting those we care about. So now, let's take a closer look at risk factors for Alzheimer's disease. What causes Alzheimer's disease? Researchers don't know exactly what causes Alzheimer's disease. Many things are thought to be involved. But as scientists have learned more about the condition, they've found clues about where symptoms come from and who's at risk. When a person has Alzheimer's, their brain changes. Most of the time, their brain cells develop to types of problems. Neurofibrillary to tangles. These twisted fibers form due to a buildup of a protein called tau. These tangles hinder the brain's transport system, which carries nutrients and other important substances within cells. Beta-amyloid plaques. These are sticky clumps of another type of protein, called amyloid, that build up between nerve cells. Healthy brains are able to break these proteins down. Both plaques and tangles block communication between cells. Affected brain cells make less of the chemicals that send messages to other brain cells. These changes usually start in the part of the brain that controls memory, then spread farther. Over time, the damaged cells die and the brain shrinks. This leads to symptoms such as memory loss, speech problems, confusion, and mood swings. Is Alzheimer's genetic? It seems to be at least partly genetic, although scientists aren't sure exactly how it's passed down. They do know that if you have an immediate family member like a parent or sibling with Alzheimer's, you're slightly more likely to get it. 2. Genetic information, or DNA, is divided into chapters called genes. Each gene has instructions for how a particular part of the body works. If the instructions have a misprint, that can lead to various health problems. Alzheimer's risk factors. Alzheimer's disease is most likely caused by a mix of your genes, your lifestyle, and things in your environment. There are a few things that may make you more likely to get it. Age and Alzheimer's. Dementia is not part of normal aging, but the older you get, the more likely you are to have it. Your risk starts increasing around age 65. Down syndrome and Alzheimer's. Most people have 2 copies of each chromosome, but people with Down syndrome have 3 copies of chromosome 21. This chromosome holds the AP gene, which is involved in forming the beta-amyloid plaques that play an important role in Alzheimer's disease. About half of people with Down syndrome get Alzheimer's in their 50s and 60s. That's 10 to 20 years earlier than most people without Down syndrome tend to get it. Head trauma and Alzheimer's. People who have a traumatic brain injury after age 50 are more likely to develop Alzheimer's. The disease is most likely to start within 2 years of the injury. Cholesterol and Alzheimer's. People with high cholesterol are more likely to get Alzheimer's. The APOE gene helps control how fats, including cholesterol, are carried through your bloodstream. This may be why those who have this gene are at higher risk. Taking a statin drug for high cholesterol can help lower the odds that you'll get Alzheimer's. Blood pressure and Alzheimer's. High blood pressure is when the force of blood pushing against the walls of your arteries, like water in a hose, is too high. This can damage tiny blood vessels in the brain, reducing the flow of blood and nutrients there. Controversial Alzheimer's risk factors. Aluminum and Alzheimer's. Aluminum is found in many household products and occurs naturally in some foods. A study in rabbits in the 1960s found that those that got shots containing very high doses of aluminum developed protein tangles in their brains. This led to fears that aluminum you get through your diet or absorb in other ways could be a factor in Alzheimer's in humans, but many studies since then have failed to confirm a connection. Most experts today don't believe that exposure to normal amounts of aluminum raises your risk of Alzheimer's. For one thing, our bodies absorb less than 1% of the aluminum in food and drinks. And it's normal to have small amounts of aluminum in your brain. Manganese and Alzheimer's. Manganese is a metal that's essential for healthy brain development. It's found in air, water, food, soil, and dietary supplements. But some studies have linked overexposure to manganese to Alzheimer's disease. It's possible that manganese affects neurotransmitters, the chemicals that brain cells use to communicate with each other. Zinc and Alzheimer's. It's not clear whether there's a link between zinc and Alzheimer's disease. People with Alzheimer's have been found to have more zinc in their brains than others, but less in their blood. Research into whether zinc makes amyloid plaques better or worse has had mixed results. Foodborne poisons and Alzheimer's. One study found that people 50 and up who had infections with the H. pylori bacteria that caused symptoms had at higher risk of Alzheimer's disease. Another found that repeated digestive infections could increase your risk of dementia. Researchers think these infections might upset the balance of bacteria in your gut or trigger widespread inflammation. But we need more research into this link. Also, some foodborne toxins can cause symptoms that resemble those of Alzheimer's. In Canada, an outbreak of a nervous system disease similar to dementia affected some people who ate mussels contaminated with domoic acid. Domoic acid seems to trigger seizures that can damage the brain, leading to thinking and memory problems. Viruses and Alzheimer's. In some brain and nervous system diseases, a virus is the culprit. It can lurk in the body for decades before triggering symptoms. Researchers have long wondered if a virus could play a similar role in Alzheimer's disease. Several viruses have been linked to an increased risk of Alzheimer's. They include oral herpes, HIV, hepatitis, pneumonia, and flu viruses. But it's also true that people with Alzheimer's are more vulnerable to infections. That's because inflammation, the buildup of proteins. A recent study found that people with viral encephalitis were 30 times more likely to get Alzheimer's. This inflammation may weaken the blood-brain barrier, leading to problems with thinking and memory. What's the link between dementia and these risk factors? Dementia and epilepsy. It's common for people with dementia to have epileptic seizures. Scientists aren't sure why, but they think it has to do with the buildup of amyloid plaques and tau tangles in the brain. Dementia and diabetes. People with diabetes have an increased risk of dementia. That may be partly because they're also likely to have other dementia risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and obesity. Also, in both diabetes and Alzheimer's, your brain cells can become less responsive to insulin. Over time, this can cause amyloid plaques and tau protein tangles to form. Because of this, diabetes in people with Alzheimer's is sometimes called type 3 diabetes. Dementia and sleep apnea. Obstructive sleep apnea causes interrupted breathing while you sleep. It often overlaps with Alzheimer's. About half of people with Alzheimer's have episodes of apnea after their diagnosis. Sleep apnea is 5 times more common in those with dementia than in others of similar age. Some researchers think untreated apnea raises your risk of Alzheimer's. It interrupts the sleep that's critical for brain health. It also might cause inflammation and other problems in your brain. Further, it raises your risk of heart problems, which are also linked to Alzheimer's. Sleep apnea treatment could help lower your risk of Alzheimer's. Some studies have even suggested that apnea treatment could improve dementia symptoms and slow the progression of Alzheimer's in people with both conditions. Dementia and hearing loss. People with hearing loss are more likely to get Alzheimer's. Even mild hearing loss can double your risk. Doctors aren't sure why this is. Trouble hearing might be an early signal that certain parts of the brain are struggling. At the same time, hearing loss makes it harder to talk and socialize with others, increasing your risk of Alzheimer's. Hearing aids can help. When you get them, you're at no higher risk of dementia than someone with normal hearing. Dementia and smoking. Cigarettes contain toxic substances that trigger cell inflammation and stress, both of which are linked to Alzheimer's. Also, smoking can cause blood vessel problems, which are also linked to dementia. As a result, smoking probably adds to 14 out of every 100 cases of Alzheimer's, but quitting can help bring your risk back down. Dementia and drinking. Too much drinking can have a big impact on your brain. Over time, it can cause the parts of the brain involved with memory to shrink. Because of this, people with alcohol use disorders are more likely to get dementia, especially early onset dementia. Dementia and obesity. Having obesity can cause your brain to age more quickly. As part of this process, your brain starts to shrink, especially in areas linked to dementia. Also, obesity can cause long-term inflammation throughout your body. This can cause your immune cells to overreact and damage cells in your brain. Obesity is also linked to other conditions that raise your risk of dementia, such as diabetes and high blood pressure. Dementia and mild cognitive impairment. Mild cognitive impairment is when a person has mild challenges with thinking and memory. Raises your risk of later getting Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. About 1 to 2 of every 10 people 65 and older with MCI will go on to develop dementia within a year. Dementia and depression. A history of depression can double your risk of Alzheimer's disease. Depression is thought to contribute to 1 in 10 cases of Alzheimer's. It's not clear whether the age at which you had depression affects your risk. Depression and dementia have some causes in common. Depression can also be a symptom of dementia. Some experts think that brain changes earlier in the course of dementia can lead to depression. Some studies have shown that getting treatment for depression can reduce your risk of dementia. Dementia and social isolation. It's not clear why there's a link between social isolation and Alzheimer's. People who feel lonely are more likely to have other risk factors, like being overweight, drinking heavily, having heart problems, and smoking. Dementia itself may lead to social isolation. Isolation is also linked to depression and lack of exercise. 5 ways to lower your dementia risk. There's no surefire way to prevent dementia, but there are some things you can do to lower your risk. They include regular physical activity. This gets your blood pumping, carrying oxygen to your brain and improving its health. Plus, exercise can lower your dementia risk by protecting your heart. Healthy diet. Your heart and brain are closely linked, so it's important to eat a heart-healthy diet. Focus on foods that are low in saturated fat. Avoid processed foods and fatty meats, and eat plenty of fruits and vegetables. Also, drink alcohol in moderation, if you drink at all. Adequate sleep. Sleep problems have been linked to Alzheimer's. Aim for 6 to 8 hours a night. Don't nap too long during the day, and adopt a relaxing bedtime routine. Go to bed and get up about the same time each day, and avoid electronic devices at bedtime. If you have sleep apnea or another sleep disorder, get treatment. Blood sugar control. To help prevent diabetes, work to control your weight, eat a balanced diet, and get regular exercise. And see a doctor for regular screenings. If you have diabetes or insulin resistance, follow your doctor's recommendations for controlling your blood sugar. Head protection. Because head injuries can raise your risk of getting Alzheimer's, it's important to protect your noggin while bicycling, playing football, and doing other high-risk activities. It's not clear what exactly causes Alzheimer's, but several things increase your risk of it. Some are things you can't control, like your age and your genes. Others are things you can change, like protecting your heart health. Talk to a doctor about the best ways to lower your risk of Alzheimer's. Thank you so much for listening all the way through. If you found this helpful, please hit the like button and feel free to share it with your loved ones, friends, parents, grandparents, or anyone who might benefit from these gentle reminders. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos on health, simple living, and practical tips to enjoy life at every stage. Wishing you good health and peaceful days ahead. See you in the next video.